Awesome. Welcome to tonight's live stream. This was actually supposed to happen an hour ago, but there was a lot of issues with the stream. I'm hoping it's fixed and that it's not lagging like crazy. But welcome to tonight's video. Today, I want to talk to you about Gavin Harrison and Aaron Sterling's approach to recording drums. And if you don't know who Gavin Harrison is, he was in the band Porcupine Tree. He now plays with King Crimson as their touring drummer. Aaron Sterling is a drummer for John Mayer and he's played awesome killer recordings with some awesome bands. So, as producers and engineers and musicians, we have probably, or you have probably learned how to record drums by watching other engineers and producers out there, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a great way to learn how to record drums. I've done it myself, but I think it can be very useful and beneficial to listen to experts on various instruments like drums in this case and see how they like to record themselves, because I think we can learn a lot from that and maybe take away something that we wouldn't have thought about otherwise. So that's why I want to show you these tips from Gavin Harrison and Aaron Sterling. And I want to start out by listening to a clip from my interview with Gavin, where he talks about how he likes to record drums. And then we do the same with Aaron Sterling. So let me play you a clip with Gavin, and we will dissect it afterwards. So let's have a listen to what Gavin Harrison has to say on the topic. So what are you looking for when you record yourself, as in terms of sound, or what's your thought process as a drummer recording yourself?
I know what I want the drums to sound like. So I play the drums the way I want them to sound. They're tuned the way I want them to sound. So when I listen back to the recording, I'm searching for that sound. It could be the balance, it could be the EQ, it could be the room, it could be any number of things that are stopping that sound coming through, you know, the raw sound that I think I want to hear. And it could change from song to song and artist to artist, or whoever, whatever band I'm playing in. I might want a different snare drum sound in one band and a different in another band. And when I normally do recordings in my studio, obviously I have it all set up, ready to go. And the first thing I do, I listen to the song. I listen to the song without whatever demo drums or drum machine is in there, and I try to imagine what would I like to hear on this song? What drum rhythm would I like to hear, and what sounds? And that might immediately make me think I'm going to try this ride cymbal, or I'm going to change the hi-hats, or I'm going to tune the snare drum up, or any number of those things. Or I might feature more of the room mics and less of the close mics. So I normally, after the first take, where before I've even written out a chart or even understand the song structure, I'll go and have a quick play through it, and immediately I'll try to mix it. Because if the bass drum sound isn't working, or the hi-hat sound isn't working, or anything isn't working, I should change it now, not in 4 hours' time when I'm really deep into this song and I've already done a few takes. So I might even do 2 or 3 takes and then think, no, this snare drum is not working the way I want it to work in this mix. So I might scrap all of that, put up a different snare drum, tune it differently, and do another take, and then compare them and think, is this better? Yeah, this is where I want to go. This snare drum's now sounding better. What I think is too loud is the ride cymbal. So I'm going to change the ride cymbal for a different ride cymbal and maybe play it a bit lighter, because, you know, you've got to play the mix the way you want it to sound. If you want the hi-hats loud, hit the hi-hats hard. If you can't just turn them up. If you turn them up, you'll hear lots of other things on that hi-hat mic. The drums aren't a drum machine. They're not everything is bleeding into every other mic. So if you listen back and think, the snare drum's too quiet, you might be able to turn it up a little bit, but then the hi-hat starts to get loud, and then other things start getting in the snare drum mic. You're better off going to play the whole thing again and just hit the snare drum harder. To get the closest to a mix whilst you're playing is really the key way to go. There are obviously a million tricks you can do with EQ and compression and reverb and all that stuff. But if what you're starting off with is not great, you're going to be chasing your tail round in circles, because it'll always sound duff. It'll always sound wrong, even though you've tried to replace this and manage that and EQ this. In the end, it won't be as good as you doing it all again with the right sounds and the right mix.
I hope you enjoyed that clip with Gavin. I think what he's saying is super valuable in terms of he doesn't want to wait until the mix to make his drum part sound good. If something is too loud, if something is in the wrong tuning, so to speak, he wants to fix it right then and there, so the recording becomes as good as possible. And also, he is talking about the performance of the drummer. So, for example, if the hi-hat is too loud or too quiet, or the snare, for example, he wants the drummer to play it louder or quieter, not turn it up, turn the mic up or down in the mix later, because as you know, recording drums, there's a lot of bleed. So if you turn up the snare, you might get a lot of hi-hat. So it's easier to ask the drummer maybe to play the hi-hat softer in that case. That's something I think is very cool and something very valuable to think about when we do work with drummers and record drums. And not just think, oh, I have my mics up, now I can blend the mics to my preference. If something's not working, talk to the drummer and say, hey, what about a ride? Should we change it? Maybe play the hi-hat softer, play the ride louder, or tune the snare differently. So that's some very cool info that we can utilize when we record drums, and not just be so focused on, oh, I gotta have this mic, gotta sound this bright, gotta use this EQ to bring the snare out. But another tip I want to share with you is from my interview with Aaron Sterling, drummer for John Mayer. This is not audio or video. This is a written interview that came out a year ago-ish. So let me just bring up a small section from the interview and we can go through it together. You should see this text on the left side of the screen. Let's go through it together. It's quite short. So I asked Aaron, what can we as engineers do to make drummer feel as comfortable as possible when tracking drums? And he said, the best thing to do is to stop thinking like an engineer and hope that the drummer stops thinking like a drummer. Instead, think in terms of how to communicate emotion for the betterment of the song. Then you get to ask the drummer what they are thinking in terms of sounds and parts to play. Don't talk drums. I don't like when people start saying that you should get a metal snare, because what the hell does that mean? Metal snare doesn't mean anything. Neither does wood snares. They are words that should be thrown away. You should be asking about what the vibe or color they're going for, and this is very similar to Gavin's point. He continues, is it aggressive or mellow? If you start talking in these descriptive terms, drummer gets excited. And they will show you what they're going to play. And if they have any ideas that are dependent on recording techniques, they can describe it to you. For example, if they say, I wish it sounded more like Underwater, then as an engineer producer, you know that you have to roll off some high end. And communicating like this is much better than thinking, I got to record a drum set as it is, and I wish he could hit the cymbals more quiet or quieter. And I think that's a super valid point. And it does go back to what Gavin said about recording drums. So as producer and engineer, don't just go in there and think about, what Aaron said, that you got to record the drums this way. I got to use this mic, this compressor, whatever. Although that's really fun and we can make the drum sound awesome. I think if we talk to the drummer and we ask him, well, what's the drum part for this song? What are you thinking in terms of sound? You, as a producer and engineer, might get some really cool ideas from that you didn't think about before. And the example he said, I want it to sound like Underwater. Maybe you hadn't, that might not be your initial approach to record drums. But that can be a really cool idea that you can go further with. And if you're good, you know what to do to achieve that, you know. So I think that can be a really helpful tool for us as producer and engineers, because it might give you some cool ideas. So listen to the drum part. Very important. You might get some cool ideas. And does anything need changing on a drum set? Before you start changing mics and EQs, can you swap the snare out? Does the ride need to change? Does the tom need to be tuned differently? Snare need to be tuned differently? Is there anything you can do to enhance the sound before the mix? Again, can a drummer play something louder or quieter? Maybe hi-hat down, hi-hat up, snare down or snare up, you know, for example. Also, what's the drummer hearing? Does he have a sound in mind that he wants to go for? So these are all really cool ideas you can take away for your next session. Go in there with an open mind, talk to the drummer, get them excited, and I'm sure you're going to get some kick-ass recordings from that. But I hope this video was helpful and can get you some cool ideas for future recording. And please let me know in the comments if you have any questions or your own tips and tricks you'd like to share on this topic. And I'm also going to link the full interviews in the description below. And also, before I leave you for today, I want to let you know about a free guide you can download right away. It's called 3 Tested Ways to Increase Your Client Base. And I made this guide for home studio owners who want to increase their client base. And this guide, you can learn my tested email script of how to contact bands online. You can also learn how to get clients offline or in real life, so to speak, and how to get clients coming back for more. So this is a free guide I put together. The link is just right below. Just enter your email address and I'll send it to you right away. It was awesome talking to you this Monday evening. Finally, the stream got up and running. I hope it was smooth watching. Everything was working for you. But that's it. Pleasure. And I'll see you guys soon again.